Push that button right there. We are now recording.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So I am going to share the screen. And as always, you will have a stroke when you see my, when you have to look at my desktop. Oh, good. You didn't have to look. Okay. So we're going to jump right in here and talk about the internship log. Now, I think most of you had Stedman and, let's see, Hamrick? Is that correct? Who did you have to look at yours last time?
I had Dr. Hamilton.
I had Dr. Hamilton too.
Hamilton. Okay, excellent. So Dr. Hamilton gets you started off right, so I'm excited about that. But the thing that sometimes happens with Dr. Hamilton's interns is they forget. They're so relieved to be done with that first semester. They forget to go back and look at her comments and make the corrections that she suggests. You know, we like to be nice and say we're just suggesting it, but really, if we tell you something needs to be done, we mean do it. You know, it's just nice. We're just being professionally courteous and recommending it. But it means you need to do it. So if you will be sure when you get into TaskStream to just take an hour or two on a Saturday and go through every one of your, you know, every one of the competencies in your folio, read her comments and make sure that she said it is good as is. But if she said you need to go back and label this or you need to add that, do it. Because what happens is you get to that last semester and you're ready to graduate, and all of a sudden I do your final audit and I'm like, wait a minute, you never corrected the things that you were supposed to from 601. And then people are stuck right there at the deadline for graduation trying to get it done. So don't let that happen. Make it a point now before things get so hectic in this semester to go back, look, read her comments, and anything she says you need to add, relabel, clarify, do it now and have that done. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I also wanted to point out, to remind you to go back to this sheet. This was given to you when the person came to your school, when Dr. Robertson, or for Jessica, it was me. I'm not sure who visited you, AJ.
You did.
Oh, I did?
Yes,
I kept looking at your name, but I'm looking at your picture from this direction. I'm looking at you like this. You know, look, now you look familiar. Yeah, what's your school?
Alston Middle in Somerville.
Yes.
And
Okay, very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I was looking this afternoon. I thought that looked familiar. Okay, great. All right, so you, I promise you, I gave you this sheet.
Yes, ma'am.
And this sheet is just a good reminder of how to get a variety of activities in your internship log. Because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to come up at the end and at your last one in 605 have somebody say, oh, wait a minute, I don't think you really had enough. Most of yours is just supervisory. I don't think you have enough in, say, having to do with teachers or whatever it is, or parent involvement or something like that. So this leadership opportunities on the left, this gives you a good sheet with some bullets on there. It is not a checklist. You do not have to have all these things, but it does give you some good ideas. If you're going into this semester thinking, oh, I'm doing the same old thing, what have I not had experience with? And some things I wanted to point out to you is these things right here, supervision, you're going to get plenty of those hours. I'm not worried about that. I am more concerned about these technical knowledge hours. Things like Power School or incident reporting, for example, if you could sit with your principal, assistant principal, whoever does it, whoever has to input those, the discipline things each month for the state to look at, anything that has to be uploaded for the state, that would be great if you could be in on that. Any of the technology things that are going on, purchasing, making decisions about what you're going to buy, how you purchase orders and accounting procedures, and you know what, that could just be as simple as make an appointment with your financial secretary with your principal's permission and just sit down and say, so what happens when a teacher sends in a request for, duplicating paper, or when a teacher has a request for a certain type of textbook, or how do you determine what we buy, where we buy it, and how does that happen? And so that would be, you could put that down as internship hours, just sort of shadowing your financial secretary. So pay attention to these. Pay attention to these leadership opportunities. So on your planning period, could you follow the assistant principal around or the principal? Or are you close enough to another school that maybe when there is a double period somewhere, you could go over to another school and shadow somebody there? Do you have a charter school in your area that maybe on a day when you have a work day, they're in school and you could visit them? So those are just some ideas to help you get a variety of experience. Many times when you interview for your job, they will ask you about your experiences from this internship log. And so you want to be able to have a variety of things to show off that you've had experience with. Any questions about the internship log or internship experience? Okay. So I wanted to, let's talk about the folio itself. I think that you're pretty, I think, like I said, Dr. Hamilton got you off to a great start, and I'm excited about that. I love working with her interns. But remember, you have this sheet that I also gave to my interns at the beginning. I think you probably all have it. It shows the alignment. So the if you'll see competency, let me get up there. Right here, competency folio artifacts from the OMA. And these are the things on the left, these are the documents that you will be gathering during the OMA. The second column is the competency number. So while you're working on the OMA, you'll be using in North Carolina, the report card. In South Carolina, if you have a school report card or your climate analysis, your school improvement plan, your teacher working condition survey, or in South Carolina, you have another survey, I believe. So you'll be looking at those, and those will satisfy competencies 10, 16, and 18. And they are things that you are using in the OMA Task 1. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Now, the other thing is to, I believe all of you will have this correct. And I'm not sure if I can make this bigger or not. So I don't know how well you can see this, but if you're with Dr. Hamilton, I'm sure she showed you. But you have to be sure that your attachments and the things that you have uploaded as evidence in your competency folio, that they are labeled correctly. So you need to have it labeled as to, is it from the APSL, the APTEL, the OMA? And you also need to have it labeled digital learning if it's a digital learning competency, if you're satisfying that with it. And as long as you do that as you go along, you won't have a problem at the end. Questions about that? Okay, so I'm going to go back to, okay. So I think, you see this lovely sling? 24/7.
Wow.
Yeah, you get to sleep in it for 6 weeks. All right, I'm about to hang myself. It's really what I'm doing. All right. Now, we're going to start out, like we said the other night, you're doing the OMA. But we'll take you through the OMA and the SKIP. But before we end this course, I will start you, my interns, on the CAP number 1. And I just want to tell you ahead of time why. Summer school is 10 weeks. Your regular semester is 16 weeks. So if you think you're busy now, summer school is a bear. So if you wait until summer school to do the CAP and the SIAP, which is your last one, you're going to be doing 2 artifacts plus your classwork in 10 weeks. It will kill you. You could do it, but it will kill you. So what I like to do is get my interns started on the CAP at the end of this semester. And if you follow the timeline I have for you, you can do it. So when this class ends the beginning of May, you'll have about 3 weeks before your summer session starts, and you can be well on your way with that CAP. And if you really pay it, you know, if you really work at it, you can have it done by the time summer school starts. And it is definitely to your advantage to do that. And even though its semester's not end, I still live here, I'm here, and I'll be glad to work with you through that time when you're not, you know, in class, okay? So anyway, let's talk about the OMA. So what questions, you've had a chance to look at it. What questions do you have by the OMA?
Can you walk us through it, like starting through with task 1 and maybe each category and possible information we can put in the different categories?
Yeah, let's go to it. Let's go to it on Blackboard.
Okay.
So I can show you what we have on Blackboard. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Well, it sounds good if I can figure out a way to do it. Here we go. You know, Dr. Whitaker and I call your group the AIG group. We're real excited about your group, just so you know.
AIG.
Oh, academically and intellectually gifted.
Oh.
You're the smart ones. You're the good ones. Hard workers.
Right.
Okay.
Oh.
You get it now?
I got y'all schools.
All right, let's see here. We just set these up. I'm not even sure I remember where it is, but I think it's here. Okay, so I think I told you this, that Dr. Lamb, I'm not sure what he was thinking because he never does this, but he actually put an example in here. So you actually have a paper. But here's the template. But I think the one that helps the most is Task and prompts. I think it's this one. Okay, so let me walk you through this because this is important that you understand this. The rubric for the OMA in task 1 is simply saying we are looking at the school in its context. So both the inside of your school and the outside of your school. And so in everything that you're looking at, you're comparing it to other schools in your district to your and to your state, and then your state on out to your region, to the nation, however you choose to do it. So you're looking at the size and the performance, you're looking at the demographics, you're looking at the staff, you're looking at services. There isn't a set checklist, but sometimes these could be 40 pages long, but sometimes they could be 20. It just sort of depends. I'm going to use Jessica because I visited her school. Jessica has a lot of stuff going on at her school right now. So she has a lot that she can tell us about how they're organized, the organization of it. And her principal has a lot of procedures in place and processes in place. So I would pretty well believe that she could go to him and say, okay, so tell me about our custodial staff. And he probably has a process for hiring custodial staff, for managing them, for who's responsible for what, and that sort of thing. And that could be part of it. The master schedule is going to be part of it. And the master schedule, it's like, who decides the master schedule? Some places, the principal just sits down and does it. Some places, the principal sits down and has a list of priorities. And then some places, he has a whole team or a school improvement team. But the things you want to remember is you are taking school law. And so to the degree that you can gather the information from your reading and so forth, you want to know what laws govern your schedule. And they might be state laws, they might be district policies. For example, do any of you know if you have a state or a district requirement for how many minutes of language arts you have to have each day?
State.
State?
State. I know South Carolina is state.
Okay. So you need to include that in your discussion about the master schedule, because your master schedule has to allow for that, right?
Right.
All right. The other thing you have to think about is EC. So like, let's see, Sarah, at your school, are you at an elementary?
Yes, ma'am.
At your school, do you have an EC resource teacher that meets with students, like pulls them out or goes in the classroom?
Yes, ma'am. We have one we share with another school. We don't have one that's just here all the time.
Okay, see, that's a huge scheduling thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in your discussion in the OMA, what you're trying to get at is what are the priorities? When you just start, anybody can just sit down and do a beautiful schedule on paper. But when you start doing a schedule for real, what are the priorities? What are the things that govern what you can do? So, Sarah, for you, one of the big ones is going to be EC, because by law, you have to serve those children the number of minutes their IEP says.
Yeah.
But by district, you're only allowed so many hours of an EC resource teacher per week. So, first grade might want to have their language arts block first, but if that's when you have an EC resource pullout, and that, you know, you can't do it during that, or if they want to have recess first, but you have the EC teacher there and they can't miss recess. Those are the things we're focusing on in the OMA. Organizational management. These are usually new things for you, but I want you to think like a principal that wants to stay out of jail, that wants to keep his or her job, that wants to offer a school that's not only a safe place for children, but that's operating in the legal requirements by the school board, the state, and the nation, you know, the federal government. So, and then all that budgeting is talking about just the process mainly of that. All right. I think what Jessica wanted to know was to look at the task and the prompts and walk through that. So let's see if we can do that. Okay, so the first one is the contextual analysis, and that's what I've been talking to you about. The candidate examines the school and its context, internally, externally. The organizational structures, so the management routines, and the operations. So the organizational structures would be things like, I have a principal, I have an assistant principal, I have 2 EC resource teachers, I have 8 classroom teachers, I have ESL teacher. So that's the basic information about your staff and how the school is organized and structured. You have 5 first grades, 3, 8 second grades, whatever it is, how your school is structured. We have a K-5 school, where, if your school, we have an English language learners, we have EC students, we have gifted students, the different programs that you serve could be there. That's organization. The management routines are things like who monitors the building, who's in charge of the people who are in charge of the building, the care of the building. For example, did you know that your playground needs to be inspected every day? Because you know what happens on elementary playgrounds at night and on weekends. And so it's a hotbed of mess. And you don't want your little kids going out there to needles or beer cans or whatever else they might find. Or something may have happened that a bolt broken or something like that. So one of the first things you do every morning is have your custodian, or that I did, have your custodian go out and walk the playground and the exterior of the building to make sure that it's safe, that it's clean, that you don't have fire ants that popped up overnight, or that a dog hasn't visited your playground, those sorts of things. So is that piece of management in place? And who does he report to? Who monitors that? That was just a rule at my place. And if you didn't find anything, you didn't report to me about it. There was a form he filled out and put it in my mailbox. But unless there was an issue that he couldn't take care of, I didn't know about it. Most things, he could call the central office and order maintenance. We have a broken screw on the slide at such and such, or we need to have sprayed for fire ants, whatever it was. So those are your management routines. That includes your cafeteria. Who looks at like your fire drills, who inspects your fire things. I have such a great vocabulary today. Who inspects your fire what do you call them? You know, that put the fires out. Yes, they have to be, you know.
So, in task one, we're looking at the entire school. Like I kind of followed, I did what I could, but I'm listening to you talk, and there are like several things that I even thought about custodial and cafeteria, and all that's in task one, or that's going to be.
This is all in the contextual analysis of task one.
Whoa, okay.
Okay. So, for example, when you talk about your staff, you could say we have 36 classroom teachers, 1 English language learner teacher, 1 music teacher, 1 PE teacher. We are the smallest or the lowest staffed school, elementary school in our system. Or we have our PE teacher, we have 1 PE teacher for 500 students. The schedule only allows this teacher to meet with students every 2 weeks. So children only get instruction in physical education by a physical education teacher twice a month. Other schools in our district are equally as understaffed in that area as we are. Or other schools have 2 PE teachers and are able to serve a larger percentage or serve their students weekly. Something like that. So you're looking at your school in context and its organization and management of it. And then the operations. Operations are like, who's over your buses? Who does your bus schedule? Who maintains your buses? Where do they come from? Who pays for the gas? Who arranges the routes? Who mows your grass? Who paves your parking lot? Who takes care of your building if you need it painted, if you have a hole in the roof? The operations of it. And again, it's interesting to interview your cafeteria staff when you get into that, because most places cafeteria staff is an outside entity, and they're separate. So they're part of your school system, but they're also a separate business too. So, but it just depends. Everything varies from system to state. But all that stuff is OMA 1. Now, how much of that do you need to include? It all depends. You don't have to go into great detail about every facet of that unless there's something that needs to be explained. For example, if AJ's principal took some of his money and hired more staff rather than spending it on books or duplicator paper, and he has extra staff, smaller class size than the other schools in his district, then he would certainly want to talk about that here. If Sarah's principal is just a stickler for keeping a top-notch building, like the physical building was really important to me because I had a new school. And I knew it wasn't going to stay that way if we didn't intentionally. So I had some of the dumbest rules, but they were important. So one of them was no tape. You couldn't put masking tape, painter's tape, Scotch tape, no tape on the walls, no tape on the floors, no tape on the furniture. I had a no tape rule. And the reason is, if you go in a school that's 6 years old and tape has been put up, taken down, put up, taken down, what you start seeing is tape residue that's left that turns black and eats off the paint, and new paint globs over it and makes a blob. It just doesn't look good, and your school building looks old before its time. So I made no bones to my staff about why I thought these things were important, but I also acknowledged that I know it's a stupid rule, and I know to you it just seems so insignificant, but it's important to me, and I'm in charge of the building, so I get to make that rule. Of course, when I retired, the day that I was leaving, everybody brought out their tape and had it just hanging from the halls as a joke. But anyway, it's that sort of thing that you want to pay attention to. What are the things that your leader, either in management or in organization or in operations, everybody's not strong in everything. But find out kind of as you're looking at it, what do you think your leader's little niche is? And what is it that you can learn from that leader and point out that your school might do differently from another school? Does that help?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Can we go ahead and look at 2 because they're so closely together?
Sure. Mhm.
Okay. So in 2, you're talking about the instructional capacity building. So you will assume responsibility for developing a program for instructional capacity building designed to improve student achievement in accordance with district and state initiatives, not to exclude select programs for exceptional learners and so forth. So let's look at instructional capacity refers to the collection of resources for teaching that a district or school grade level subject area team has to support instruction, and most importantly, the ability to effectively use the resources to engage students in deepen learning. The 4 types of instructional resources that are used are knowledge, tools and materials, relationships, and structures. So you're going to have a needs assessment is a systematic process of gathering information that's appropriate and sufficient to develop an effectual education program. Prior knowledge, skills, and it's got all those. All right. That is usually the one that everybody's going, what? So let's go back and actually look at let's look at the actual paper itself. That was under week 1. Okay, 2. The candidate will develop a plan for instructional capacity building program features, depth of knowledge in the following areas. In a descriptive narrative, in cooperation with the principal, you're going to talk about your program. Let's go see what they gave us. Let's go see what Dr. Lamb gave us to look at as far as the example. There you go. See how long this is? But the other thing about it is, the difference is that a lot of this, it's like sitting down writing a research paper almost, and you can do it without You're not waiting on information to come back. You're not waiting on people to meet. So you got a little better control about it. All of this is just organizational management. Yep, we're at 58 pages right now.
Hmm.
And these are all of the charts and so forth that they add at the end. Oh, that's all he gave you was one, wasn't it?
All of that was task 1?
Surely not. That's what it says at the top. Let me see. That can't be.
Mm-mm.
No. Let's go back to the very beginning where they had, oh wow, and this is an old one too. There you go. 33 is where we start.
Okay.
Sorry. Here we go. All right. So what you're going to do basically is you're going to go through and look at the student performance and the different groups. And I don't know why this says it starts on 33, but I don't see it unless it just starts right here. It's not separated. But they have the gifted and talented. You might have a career ready program. How you identify needs, any school-wide initiatives that you may have, what type of, say if you have a mathematics program. I think, Jessica, you had something special going on with reading, didn't you?
Yes, the LLI level literacy intervention program.
Yeah, so you could talk about that.
Mhm.
So what you're matching up is you're matching up your school's needs with instructional program. So let's see if let's go back to this one. Let's go to the rubric. Here you go. So if you'll walk through this one that's talking about instructional capacity building, again, the main thing, you're talking about knowledge, tools and materials, relationships and structures, but you're comparing all of your stuff to the system, to the state, and to the region to the degree that you can. You can't always do that. So to start with, you're going to develop an analysis of the existing school schedule to include but not limited to the following. And this is prompt 1. Assessment of the schedule, the strengths, the areas for improvement, alignment with school improvement team findings, alignment with legal requirements, alignment with needs of diverse and exceptional populations, evidences of input from the faculty, and utilization of findings as a basis for revising the current schedule. So basically what you're doing is you're going to look at your master schedule. And I have some better notes on this. I'll see if I can get them out for you because it sounds overwhelming, but it really falls out pretty easily. So what you do is you take a look at the master schedule. How did you get the master schedule that you have? Who put the input? Who made the decisions? How was it designed? And then I gave you a list, I think, of one of the resources in your on the Blackboard, you know, with the OMA in Zoom 1 in that folder. One of the resources I think is like the legal requirements. There's some legal requirements in there. Look at that. So you want to make sure that you're legally doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing in your schedule. And you analyze it from that aspect. And then you look at what the school improvement team from last year put into the plan for this year. So like, did they want to have longer language arts blocks? Did they want to have more math time? What did they want to change in the schedule this time? And look at that, and you're analyzing all of that. Look at exceptional populations. So are you meeting the needs? Did you have your IEP requirements? Are you looking at those? Do you have a process for, is somebody monitoring to make sure that you're meeting those IEP minutes, and so forth? And just looking at the whole current schedule you have. And then you're going to determine a problem, and that's getting into 3 in the schedule. I'm sorry. In 2, you're looking at the program itself. And you're going to analyze all your programs. So like how you do everything, how you do EC, how you do reading, how you do language arts. And once you get that done in 2, then in 3, you're going to break it down to the schedule.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, so 2 is just looking at the instruction, what you're teaching, how you're teaching it, what you're using to teach it with, what do you have that's adequate, what do you need more of, is there something that you don't have that you need to have to address the instructional capacity in your building. So for example, did you need more leveled readers? Do you have enough to adequately do the program that you want to do? That's what you're doing in 2. So.
Dr. Z, they're putting me out the building, so I'm going to log off and then log back on when I get in my car.
All right, and I've just got about 10 more minutes anyway, so if you miss me, I'll send you an email.
Okay.
All right, so let's go back to, I wanted to look at this outline by Dr. Robertson. Everything that I have thoroughly confused you with or scared you with or thrown at you is just to give you that big picture. But when you really get down to it, I think Dr. Roberts' outline that he came up with, we worked on this year before last, and I think if you can sort of stick to this, you'll be in business. So you start with OMA 1, contextual analysis. Internal, external. So you're looking at demographic information. Talk about your students. Your students, again, you're listing like your minorities, you're listing all the different groups, but you're comparing them to the system, the state. You know, like we have the largest population of poverty in our system, or our school is 3rd, you know, in diversity. Whatever you want to, whatever you have, you're comparing it to those things. That's what people usually forget. Then look at your staff. And, you know, you have X number of have a master's degree. So many have a bachelor's degree. Just break down the makeup, the demographic of your staff. What's their race? What's their gender? What's their education? What's their years of experience? And usually you can pull that right off of your climate analysis. I thing or some kind of report that you have in South Carolina. In North Carolina, we have it on our report card. And then look at the district, state, federal laws and mandates that you have on that sheet. So like, do you have the right person? For example, if you're in middle school, the federal law tells you that if you have EC students, they have to have a teacher with a particular degree before it can meet an IEP requirement. So do you have those, are your people properly certified to meet those laws and mandates? And then the structures, the rules and the procedures, you can go those for students and for staff within your building. How do they move throughout the building? So forth, your budgeting process. And that's all of the things that you have to cover in OMA 1. Now, I also talked about your custodial, your cafeteria, your playground management, your building management, because those are part of organizational management. And those are things that as a principal, you need to learn about them sometime before you step into that chair. And so those are things that you might ask about, and you may find something really interesting, and you may want to include that in OMA 1. So that's why we don't have a checklist of what you include. But this outline is the basics. But then all of those things I talked about are extra things that you can include as you learn about them. And then in 2, you're going to talk about the different groups. So federal compliance of your EC, so that deals with how many kids have an IEP, how do you monitor those, who monitors those, who determines whether they're met or not, what do you have to do to be compliant with the state, and then with your local school board. And then your formative assessment plan, how is it aligned, so forth, and then your plan for professional development. So those are the things that you look at in 2. So if you'll follow this outline, you'll be a lot better off. It'll make a lot more sense. The rubric's important, but this outline will get you there. Does that make sense? So I think it takes it from being huge and so overwhelming to kind of maybe not so overwhelming. All right, so what I want you to do is step away from it. Think through everything that that you've looked at. What's your line of thinking, how you're going on the OMA, what's your gathering process for information, and just start. It's one of those things that you're just gonna have to start, look at this outline and start filling in the pieces.
Okay.
And then as you have questions, as you get in there and think, well, what do I do with this? Or what if I don't have that? Then call me, text me, email me, and we'll look at it at a one-on-one basis. You're all in very different situations, but the beauty of Gardner Webb is that you're small enough that we can deal with it on a one-on-one. Okay?
Okay.
Is that enough for you to get started?
Yes, ma'am. I think that's that was great.
Awesome. Awesome. All
No,
right.
ma'am, everything is good.
What, AJ?
Everything is good.
Okay, good.
I hope.
All right. Well, as you get into it, go back to this outline here.
Mm-hmm.
And as you get into it and you have questions, then process it. And we can talk it through. We can Zoom or we can text, whatever. Okay?
And when does this due, Dr. Z?
What?
When is task 1 due?
You know what? I don't have that. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Weekly schedule. I think it's 2 weeks.
Okay, for task 1, right?
I believe so. Let's look at this right here.
Oh, okay.
All right. It's due to peer review on the 27th,
Oh, okay. So that's next week.
the week of the 27th.
Okay.
Next Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So today is, what, Tuesday?
Yes, ma'am. The 21st.
So like my goal for you would be to gather your information the next couple of days and spend the weekend writing the paper.
Right. So when we submit it on Monday, it will be graded that week, and if any corrections need to be made, we can revise it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes, you basically get your grade on your OMA by completing it. You either
Okay.
100 points when you complete it.
Okay.
Because we don't give you a grade on it because your grade comes at the end when you get your license. Your OMA has to be done for your license. Okay?
Okay, that sounds good.
So, and at this point right here, when you have it peer reviewed, if you have a ton of stuff missing that needs to be fixed, we'll just give you more time. You know, you're not gonna, I hate to tell you, you can have more time if you need it, because I don't want you to take more time or you'll be in trouble at the end.
Right.
But if you get stuck and you get, you know, offline somewhere and you got a lot of things you need to fix and you don't have time to fix it, you can work along with that as you're starting on 2 if you have to.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any more questions?
No, ma'am.
All right. Thanks so much for joining me this afternoon.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to working with you guys. And I'm excited about doing our classes together like that. I think that'll be fun.
Oh, yeah. You're
Yes,
gonna
ma'am.
video, right? You're gonna email this to us?
I am. It'll probably be later tonight because I have to render the video and I have another class at 6.
Okay.
But I will send it out.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.